All right, so let's go through a few examples on expanding algebraic expressions containing brackets and simplify the resulting expressions. We'll try and get through as many examples of different types that you can possibly get. And let's look at the first one, right? So I'm going to write example one. Okay, example one, I have 2a and I want to plus a bracket that has 2a plus 4 inside. When a plus or when the sign plus is right next to a bracket, we actually have an imaginary 1 in place there. And all we have to do is multiply it into the bracket. But we must remember to multiply that number with the plus sign to each number with each sign twice so that we can remove the bracket. And this is what expanding the brackets is all about. It's about taking 2a plus, now 1 times anything is itself. Plus times plus is always plus. So let's make a note of that. Plus times plus is equal to plus. Plus times minus is equal to minus, and minus times minus is equal to plus. So if we ever faced with different signs, it always ends up as minus. But if we have the same signs multiplying, we always end up with plus. So here we go plus, and we're multiplying by 2a, we're going to get 2a. Plus times plus is plus. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we're going to gather like terms. All right, so I can see that 2a and 2a are like terms. So 2a plus 2a, like 2 apples plus 2 apples, is 4 apples. So that'll become 4a plus 4. All right, so before we continue, you can try this example. Try 4b plus 4b minus 5 and see what you can get from there. Press pause. I'll press pause as well. Thanks. All right, let's go through it now. So I have an imaginary 1, and I'm going to distribute it into the bracket. The 4b in front remains where it was. The 1 times 4b becomes 4b. And here we go, plus times minus. Plus 1 times minus 5 means you've got a plus and a minus. So when you multiply them, it becomes a minus. And 1 times 5 is 5. That gets me 8b minus 5. All right, so the next thing is example number 2. Example number 2, I'm given 2 brackets with a sign in between. And we must remember that whenever you have a sign and a bracket, we always have an imaginary 1 next to the sign on the right-hand side. What you'll always remember is that every sign belongs to the number on the right-hand side, not the left-hand side. So negative belongs to the 6, negative belongs to the 1, negative here belongs to the 4. All right, let's go through this one now. The first thing I can see is that my bracket over here has nothing in front of it, and we don't normally have anything at the back, but if there is, there's nothing at the end of it to multiply into the bracket. So technically, I can simply just remove these brackets and nothing will happen. I also see that 4a and 4 are not like terms, so I can't go further than that. Now, in the second bracket, I do have to multiply the negative 1 by the plus 2a, imaginary plus, and the negative 1 multiplied by the negative 6. And remember, negative times a positive is equal to a negative. Negative times a negative is equal to a positive. So here we go. Negative 1 times 2 will become negative 2a. Negative 1 times negative 6 will become positive 6. Now, I have like terms in front of me. 4a, negative 2a. Remember, the negative belongs to the 2a. And I have negative 4 and positive 6, which are constants. So 4a minus 2a gets me 2a. Negative 4 plus 6 gets me 2. So I end up with 2a plus 2, And that's my final answer. Now, you can try this, press pause, and the question goes like this. You got 6c plus 3 minus 5c minus 4. All right, try this example. Press pause. All right, so let's go through this example here. Remember, the first bracket has nothing in front and nothing at the back, so we can safely remove the bracket completely. We have an imaginary 1, and the negative belongs to the 1. So we multiply negative 1 times the imaginary plus 5c. Negative and a positive becomes a negative. 1 times 5c is 5c. Negative multiplies by a negative in the next one. Negative 1 multiplies by negative 4, giving me positive 4, because two negatives make a positive. This gives me like terms. So I've got 6c and 5c, and I've got 3 and 4. Remember, it's plus 3 and plus 4. The negative belongs to the 5. So 6c minus 5c will give me 1c, which is the same as c, and 3 plus 4 gets me 7. So my final answer here will be c plus 7. All right, example number 3 now. In example number 3, we've got a number that's not 1 anymore in front of the bracket. It's now 7. There's also no sign in front. That's imaginary plus. There's no sign in front of the 10. So that's also imaginary 10. We now take the whole plus 7 multiplied by the whole plus 10k. After we've done that, we then multiply plus 7 again by the negative 4. 7 times 10 gets me 70, and the k stays right next to it. So 7 times 10k is 70k. Okay, you got to remember your algebra. So 7 times 10k gets you 70k. 7 multiplies by 4 to get me 28, and a positive and a negative becomes a negative. So negative 28. In fact, to put it over here, again, positive times a negative gets you a negative. We can't go any further than this because these two are not like terms. All right, now you try this. Try 6 times 4j minus 7. Press pause. All right, so let's go through this one. Example 3, I've got 6. Remember, it's positive 6 and positive 4. And we multiply by the 4 and the j, which is stuck together. So 6 times 4 gets you 24j. All right, altogether 24j. Don't forget to multiply by the second number as well. 6 times 7 gets you 42. So negative 42. And we don't have like terms because we have to have the same letter and the same power, the same variable and the same power for it to be like terms. So these two are not like, which means we stop there, and that's our final answer. All right, example 4. I've got now a negative number in front of the bracket multiplying into the bracket. I've got negative 3. Remember, the negative belongs to the 3. I'm going to multiply it by positive 5, and a negative times a positive gets me a negative. So negative 3 is going to multiply by positive 5x first, then it's going to multiply by positive 7. So I end up with negative 3 times 5, which is negative 15x. Negative 3 times 7, which will give me, remember, positive times a negative will give me a negative. And 3 times 7 is 21. So my final answer here, remember these are not like terms, will become negative 15x minus 21. Both are negative, just a reminder, because we have a negative and a positive, so we end up with a negative. And then we have a negative again and a positive, so we end up with a negative again. Right. All right, I'm going to put another example up, and I want you to try this one. Okay, so try this. Let's suppose I have negative 2 times 7g minus 3. Press pause on the video and try this question. All right, let's go through this one. I've got negative 2 times 7g becomes negative 14g. The negative and the positive becomes a negative. Now, negative times a negative becomes a positive. So this is going to become positive 2 times 3 is 6. These are not like terms. So our final answer, negative 14g plus 6. So example number 5 now, I'm going to take negative 2a and multiply it twice into, so this, the negative belongs to the entire 2a. And we're going to multiply it by positive 7a first, and then multiply it by negative 3 after that. Don't forget, negative times a positive equals a negative. Negative times a negative equals a positive. So here we go. Negative 2a times positive 7a. When we multiply two variables together, we add the powers. So we have power of 1 year, power of 1 year, which means it's going to become power of 2. A times a becomes a squared. Let me just write that down. And at the same time, I've got negative 2 times 7. So when you've got negative 2 and you multiply it by positive 7, 2 times 7 is 14. So it'll become negative 14a squared, because the a's multiply and stay next to 2 times 7, which is 14. They stuck together. And I'm done with the first multiplication now. The next one, I take negative 2a, and I want to now multiply it by, so the entire negative 2a, I want to multiply it by negative 3. So when I multiply it by negative 3, in this case, we don't have a variable at 3. So a is simply going to multiply by 1 or nothing. In other words, it's going to just be a in my answer. And negative 2 multiplies by negative 3. Two negatives, remember, become a positive. So this will become positive 6a. All right, I'm going to give you an example. Press pause. And this example looks like this. Negative 3j multiplied by 3j minus 4. All right, press pause and see if you can work this one out. All right, so let's go through this one. We got negative 3j multiplying by 3j with an imaginary positive. Let's take the signs and multiply them together. We can start from the symbols. I did start with the variables, sorry, from this side here, but I can start from the left-hand side. Let's start with the signs. Negative times a positive gets you a negative. 3 times 3 gets you 9. J times j gets you j squared, and they are stuck together, and we have now multiplied the first term. Multiplying the second term, it doesn't have a variable, so we're going to end up with just that variable that we started with. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 4 is 12. These are not like terms because you have to have the same power and you have to have the same letter or same variable in order to add or subtract them. But you can multiply or divide different powers and letters, but when you're adding and subtracting terms, they have to have the same power and same letter to be like terms. All right. All right, in the next example, I've got a bracket and I'm multiplying by a bracket. So I got two terms multiplying by two terms. 2 times 2 is actually 4. So in the next line, I'm going to have 4 terms once I've multiplied this out. When you're multiplying this out, you start from the first term, which is k. And remember, there's an imaginary plus. And you multiply it by the first term in the second bracket, plus k. And we can call it f for first term. I can then take k and multiply all the way to the outer term. All right, these are the outer terms. And I've got plus k times plus 12. That'll become, let's say, O. So first, then outer. Then I go to the inner terms, which is 9. And I multiply 9 by plus k. I'm going to call it I for inner term. Then I'm going to take plus 9 and multiply it by the last two terms of the bracket. So 9 and 12 are the last two terms. Plus 9 and negative 12 actually are the last two terms of the bracket. and that'll become L. So I've got the first terms, then the outer terms, then the inner two terms, then the last two terms. So let's go ahead and multiply this now. K multiplies by K, getting you K squared. K multiplies by negative 12. It's a plus and a minus, becomes a minus. Don't forget that. Plus times minus equals minus. And this will apply throughout. K times 12 gets me 12K. Now let's go to plus 9 over here. Plus 9, the inner two, 9 times K gets you 9K. Plus times plus is plus. So plus 9K. And then 9 or plus 9 times negative 12, 9 times 12 is 108. And 9 times 12 is 108. And plus and minus becomes minus. Now we end up with four terms, just like we said. We collect like terms, okay? So let's collect the like terms. And you'll always notice that the like terms end up in the middle two terms. The first term remains as is, and the middle two terms you can normally simplify so that you end up with a trinomial or three terms. So this is going to be k squared. You got negative 12k plus 9k. Negative 12 plus 9. Remember your integers rule. If you have negative 12 and you plus 9, you're going to end up at negative 3 on a number line. So negative 3k, those are like terms. Then minus 108, I can't do much about that. So I just rewrite that and bring it down, leaving me with three terms. And that's how I do it. So I take the first term, multiply it by both terms, take the second term of the first bracket, multiply it by both terms of the second bracket. So go ahead and try this example now. Suppose you have g plus 12 multiplied by g minus 7. Okay, press pause and try it. All right, let's go through this one now. Like I said, let's take the first two terms. So we're going to take g and multiply it by g. We're going to get g squared. Then we're going to take g and multiply it by negative 7. That's the first. Now we're in the outer two terms. It'll become minus 7g. Then we take the inner two terms. 12 times g will get me plus 12g. And we can see the like terms appearing already. And then plus 12 times negative 7 gets you negative 84. That gets you g squared minus 7 plus 12 is 5g. All right, don't forget integers. And negative 84, we have completely unlike terms. We stop here, we end up with a trinomial. And just to let you know that this process is also, this expansion is also known as FOIL, where F stands for the first two terms of the brackets, O stands for outer two terms, I stands for inner two terms multiplying, and L stands for the last two terms of the bracket, calling it the FOIL method. All right, so the FOIL method is the name you could use for this. Right. All right, the next one is a little bit more advanced, expanding. In this example now, we are given coefficients in front of k. So you can see at the moment we've got 7k and 4k versus the previous example where we just had k. So let's go ahead and use the FOIL method again. We're going to take the first two terms and multiply them together. 7k multiplies by 4k. 7 times 4 is 28. K times k is k squared. Now let's go to the outer two terms. We've got 7k multiplies by negative 11. 7 times 11 is negative 77. And don't forget k is multiplying by 1 or just nothing. In other words, we keep it as k. Then we look at the inner two terms. Negative 9 multiplies by, so that was outer, this is now inner. Negative 9 times 4k gets you negative 36k. And then negative 9 multiplies by the last term. So last and last, L. Negative times a negative is a positive. All right, don't forget it's coming out again here. Signs is probably the biggest problem. 9 times 11 gets you 99, and it has to be a positive. So positive 99 for the last term. We have like terms. again, as expected in the middle. And now we've got negative 77 minus 36. So let's work that out quickly on the side here. We've got 77. Negative 77 minus 36 is almost like on the negative side of number line and going more negative. So we can add them. So I've got plus 36. So I got 77. 7 plus 6 is going to equal 13. So I'm going to go 7 plus 6 is 13, carry the 1. 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. So that's 113. So if I have negative minus a negative, it's going to become negative 113k in my middle term, as well as 28k squared. I can't do much about that, or the 99. So that's all I have to do. Once I get to that step, I then stop. We're just dealing with a little bit more bigger numbers here. So that's the only difference. Okay, you can try this example now. I'll put it over here. You can see this. Okay, try this example. Let's suppose you've got 3b minus 3 multiplied by 4b plus 5. Okay, I'm just going to squeeze it in there. Write that one down. Press pause, try it out. Press pause. All right, let's expand these brackets now. So 3b is going to multiply by 3b. That's going to get me 12b squared first, and then outer 3b times 5 gets me plus 15b. Minus 3 times 4 gets me minus 12b. Minus 3 times plus 5 gets me minus 15. So I'm left with 12b squared. 15 minus 12 is 3. So plus 3b. Remember, that's like terms. And then negative 15, bring it down. We then stop there. They are not like terms. And we're done. All right, in this example, you've got a bracket that is squared. When you have a bracket that is squared, you can write the back bracket twice. So if you write the bracket twice and go back to the same method that you had previously, which is using the FOIL method, we could then take 5 times 5, which is 25. 5t times 5t is 25t squared. First, then outer. 5 times negative 12 gets you negative 60t. And then negative 12 times 5 gets you negative 60t again. And what you'll notice is when you have a bracket squared, the middle terms always end up the same. Okay, and that's a nice thing to know if you're doing the right thing. And negative 12 multiplies by negative 12, giving you a positive, and 12 times 12 is 144. Okay, so now that you have that, what you want to do now is you are going to collect like terms in the middle now. Negative 60 minus 60. Minus 60 minus 60 is going to be minus 120. So minus 120t plus 144, and you get your final answer, and you're done. All right, so I'm going to write an example now on the right-hand side for you to try. So try this. Now, let's suppose you've got 4g minus 9 squared. Okay, press pause and try this example. All right, so let's go through this one. I have a bracket that is squared. It's got two terms in it. We call this a binomial because it's got two terms in it. So we write the binomial in a bracket twice because we're squaring it. So if we're cubing it, we could just write it 3 times. 4g times 4g gets you 16. And g times g gets you g squared. 4g times negative 9 gets you negative 36g. And likewise, negative 9 times 4g, negative 36g again. Negative 9 times negative 9 would give you positive, and 9 times 9 gets you 81. Now you have 16g squared, which is your first term. Minus 36 minus 36 gets you minus 72g plus 81, and that's your final answer with all terms being unlike. All right, cool. All right, now we're moving to more complex examples. In this example, what we have to do is we got to look at maybe bad mass, or we're going to call it bid mass or bod mass. And we can see that we should deal with one thing first. And I can see that this bracket over here is multiplied together. So we would do that first. And we would use whatever we know already. And once we've done that, we then collect like terms, and simplify the resulting expression. So let's go ahead and do that first. I'm going to rewrite x squared because I'm not going to do anything with that. And I can rewrite 22x right now, or I can rewrite it at the end, but don't forget to rewrite it. So I'll just put it over here. Now I'm going to fit that expansion in between the two. Keep this sign as plus, and let's see if this was a negative, that negative would play a part in the bracket multiplying the brackets out. So once you've multiplied it, you would, if you had a negative over here and you multiply the bracket out, you then have to distribute the negative to each and every term, changing it into the opposite. But we have a positive right now. So let's deal with that. We've got 3x multiplying by 4. Stick with FOIL. You got 12x. And let's go to the outer. 3x times 2x gets you 6x and a negative 6x. Negative 5 multiplied by 4 gets you negative 20. Negative 5 multiplied by negative 2x. A negative and a negative becomes a positive, and 5 times 2 gets you 10 and x. All right, so let's just make sure we've got all of this in order. There's one more thing I'm missing here, and I can see that when I multiplied 3x times 4, I got 12x. I got 3x times 2x, and that's supposed to be 3x squared. So just make a note of that. When I multiply the outer two terms, I'm going to end up with an x squared term over there. So just make a note, you are still going to have an x squared term, two x terms which are like terms, and negative or positive constant as well. Okay, so the three parts are not arranged perfectly, so just to make a note of that. Now let's look carefully for the like terms. Okay, the like terms I can see are going to be, firstly we got 12x, and we got 10x, and we've got 22x. So there's three like terms. And at the same time, we have negative 6x squared and x squared at the start. So we can bring those two like terms together. Let's bring those two together. Imaginary 1. So 1 minus 6 will give you minus 5x squared. 12 plus 10 is 22. 22 plus 22 gets you 44 plus 44x. And negative 20 doesn't have anything to add or subtract with. So we simply just write negative 20 and we're done. All the terms are unlike at the end. It's a much more complex example, but that's how it goes. Now try this question similar to this one here. Let's suppose you have 5x squared plus 2x minus 3, 1 minus x plus x. Okay, if you can see that. All right, I'm going to press pause, try that. Okay, press pause. All right, we're going to go through this one now, and let's just remember we need to first multiply out the inner two brackets. And don't forget that when we multiply the x terms, we get x squared. So here we go. 2x is going to multiply by 1 to get me 2x. 2x is going to multiply by negative. So positive and a minus becomes a minus, and this is where the x squared term is. So 2x times x gets me 2x squared. Now let's go to the inner two terms. Minus 3 times 1 gets you minus 3. And minus 3 times minus x will give you positive 3x. All right, so negative times a negative gets you a positive 3x. We end up with 4 terms, so we know we're done with the entire expansion. Let's bring plus x down, and let's bring 5x squared down. Let's find our like terms. The like terms over here would be the x squared. This is, by the way, positive. And 2x. I also have 2x, 3x, and x. And then I have negative 3, which is on its own. So 5x squared minus 2x squared gets you 3x squared. 2x plus 3x is 5x. 5x plus 1x gets you 6x. and the negative 3 stays where it was. My final expansion becomes 3x squared plus 6x minus 3. All right, let's go to example number 10 now. With example number 10, we've got a binomial that is raised to the power of 3. So now we're going to be multiplying this bracket by itself 3 times. So let's write the bracket 3 times out. Now deal with it in stages. Take the first two brackets and multiply them out first. Leave the last bracket for last. Or multiply out the second two brackets and leave the first one for last. So let's use the FOIL method again. F is x times x, which is going to give you x squared. And x multiplied by negative 3 gets you negative 3x. Negative 3 times x gets you negative 3x again. It's the same term, so it's like the previous one squared. And negative 3 times negative 3 gets you positive 9. Let's keep all of that in a square bracket so we know it's separate, and rewrite the second bracket, x minus 3. Now in the next one, I've got negative 3x minus 3x, which will give you negative 6x. And I have x squared, bring it down, plus 9. Keep all of that in a bracket, multiplying by x minus 3. And now I have 3 terms multiplying by 2 terms. I have a trinomial multiplying by a binomial. I have 3 times 2, which will give me 6 terms, which I then have to find like terms of and then simplify. So let's go now out of the FOIL method process. All you got to do is start from each of the terms in the first bracket and multiply it by every single term in the second bracket. So let's start with x squared. X squared will multiply by x to get you x cubed. X squared multiplies by negative 3 to get you negative 3x squared. Now let's go to the second term, negative 6x, multiplied across. Negative 6x is going to multiply by x to get you negative 6x squared. And you can see those two are like terms. Then take negative 6x multiplied by negative 3 gets you positive 18x. Don't forget, negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, let's go to the next one now. The next one I've got is positive 9 multiplied across. Positive 9 times x gets me positive 9x. And positive 9 times negative 3 gets me negative 27. All right, let's just make sure it's all in order. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 3, negative 3x squared. Negative 6x times x, negative 6x squared. Negative times a negative is a positive. Double check your signs. Positive and a positive is a positive. Positive and a negative is a negative. So that will be how it will work out. Now let's gather our like terms. I can see like terms over here because they have the same letter and the same power. Again, I see like terms over here. Don't forget the signs or the pluses and minuses belong to the number on the right hand side, not the left hand side. So we're in our final step now. Our final step, I'm going to rewrite x cubed minus 3 minus 6 using integers is negative 9x squared. Positive 18 plus 9. 18 plus 9 is 27. So 27x minus 27. And that's all the terms which are not like. So that's my final answer. X cubed minus 9x squared plus 27x minus 27. All right, so you can try this one now. Try this one here. Let's suppose you have x minus 5 to the power of 3. Press pause and try it. All right, let's go through this one now. When we're expanding this, what we want to do is we want to write it 3 times. So I'm just going to write it over here so I have more space. Okay, x minus 5, x minus 5. And let's deal with the first two brackets like we did previously. X times x gets me x squared. X times negative 5 gets me negative 5x. In the two terms, negative 5x FOIL. This is just normal FOIL. And negative 5 times negative 5 gets you positive 25. Keep that in a bracket, x minus 5. Simplify this bracket now. Keep it in a bracket though. Negative 5 times negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10 using integers. Minus 5 minus 5. and then just rewrite x squared and 25 at the start and the end, giving you x minus 5. There's supposed to be a 5 there. And we now have 2 multiplying by 3 terms. I'm just going to erase this over here. So just remember this was minus 27. And we can see that from here, I'm going to now multiply each term by the other. So x squared, let's multiply it all the way across. I will get x squared times x will be x cubed. And x squared multiplies by negative 5 to give me negative 5x squared. Negative 10x multiplied across. Negative 10x times x gets you negative 10x squared. Negative 10x multiplies by negative 5 to give you positive 50x. Then you got 25. 25 multiplied across. 25 times x gets you 25x. 25 times 5 gets you negative 125. All right, 25 times 4 is 100. So 25 times 5 is 125. Don't forget signs. Plus and minus is a minus. All right, let's double check our signs. Plus, 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 minus, 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 plus, minus, 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 plus. Two minuses make a plus. That's right. Plus, 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 minus, minus. So all my signs are correct. We can now simplify and find our like terms, which are those two terms and those two. We end up with x cubed minus 5 minus 10 gets you minus 15x squared. 50 plus 25 gets you 75x minus 125. And that's my final answer for these. That's the last example for algebraic expressions, expanding brackets. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Please like the video below or subscribe for more videos, and I can then create them. All right, thank you guys. Have a good day and catch you later. Thank you.